What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP, and welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast right here on the channel. We got another off-season podcast episode, the second one of very many. If you didn't check out the David Stearns press conference reaction and assessment video, that is up on the channel. We're talking Juan Soto, the one and only Juan Soto, and his upcoming free agency that's going to be headlining this offseason for the Mets, the Yankees, maybe even a couple of other teams around the league. We'll get into it. This is not the only time we're going to be discussing Juan Soto. We are going to be discussing him and his decision upcoming until he actually puts the pen to the paper and chooses his team. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up on this video for more Mets offseason content. Follow along, live streams, pre-recorded episodes just like this one, a whole bunch more, polls, all the interaction on the community tab. We appreciate the support. I appreciate the support as we are always repping that team from Queens. And this is going to be a very hot topic amongst Mets content creators, Yankees content creators on YouTube, if you follow them. And again, just the baseball world in general, as this is very highly anticipated. Now, I wanted to, obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what I have for you all in this episode. And we're going to be talking about Juan Soto and the decision. But I wanted to get you all acclimated to, the situation of Juan Soto, give you a little bit of history about, maybe a deal that was presented to him in the past when he was a Washington National, and how that could, I guess, not determine, but sort of compare to what the experts and the baseball media is talking about him potentially making in his new deal this offseason with whichever team he decides to sign that contract with. Now, obviously, outfielder / DH can be used in those roles and those roles only. The DH situation for the New York Mets is one that they've been always trying to get down and get right, I should say. And they have a couple of free agents as well coming off the books. We'll take a look at here in just a second for each respective free agent list for these teams. But, Juan Soto needs no introduction. We know that he plays outfield and he wants to continue to play the outfield. Somehow was a Gold Glove finalist for the outfield. And, I haven't paid attention too closely to the Yankees and what type of defense they were playing this entire season. But if I know Juan Soto and his outfielding abilities, he doesn't strike me as a Gold Glove candidate, but I digress. It's neither here nor there. He can play a good left field, probably a decent right field, and that's about it, in addition to the DHing responsibilities. But if you sign Juan Soto, if he's on your team, you get him for his bat. And, he had a tremendous season. There's no way around it. 288 batting average, as you can see here. He's 26 years old. He's not even into the prime of his career, right? The next couple of years are going to be leading up to the prime of his career, which is the most fascinating thing about this whole contract situation, is that he is still so incredibly young. It's hard to even fathom a 26-year-old with the accolades that he has already had under his belt and still building onto that. So 989 OPS for the 2024 season, which is absolutely ridiculous. 43 home runs, which definitely helps the OPS. I know the on-base percentage isn't on there, but if you combine that and the batting average, you equate to that 989 OPS, and the math shakes out to a 419 on-base percentage, and he drove in over 100 runs for the New York Yankees this season at 109. But, Mets fans are always talking about the possibility of signing Juan Soto this offseason, but there's not really ever any context in terms of, is it realistic, is it feasible or not? Now, if you know me, and the discussions I've had surrounding Juan Soto on this channel, I was a big advocate for the New York Mets trying to do everything in their realm of possibility this past offseason to try to acquire him from the Padres. And the reason for that is, whether it was feasible, realistic or not, was that if he was traded to the Yankees, my primary philosophy or idea at that time was that as soon as he goes into the doors of the New York Yankees, they are not going to let him walk out. right? Whether that is giving him a mid-season contract extension, which never seemed really realistic given who his agent is in Scott Boras. His clients never do that or very rarely do that. But also, even if he tests free agency, which it's seeming like he's going to do, and as he should, right? The Yankees still have the option of matching the highest bidder. But who will be the highest bidder? And that's where Steve Cohen and the Mets presumably come into the equation. So let's take a look at the actual situation surrounding these two teams in terms of the pending free agents that they have and the money coming off the books, because both of these teams had $300+ million payrolls for the 2024 season. I think everybody knows that. Both were top 5 teams in the payroll category. Obviously, if you want to take into account the dead cap money that the Mets were bringing on for, the Scherzer contract, Verlander, James McCann, etc., they were up to $317 million. And the Yankees were just behind there, I believe, at around $309 million, give or take. Again, that's on Spotrac. It's public information. I highly encourage you to fact check these numbers. But I know the New York Mets were $317 million, right around there. But what kind of situation are these teams going to go into this offseason with? And what is the 2025 payroll outlook for both of these teams as of the beginning of this offseason, as soon as the World Series is done and the Yankees season is over, right? You can take a look at the 2025 numbers per Spotrac. Again, all of these numbers are off Spotrac. They do a great job. They even give you player projections for what they think these upcoming free agents are going to make. So again, I highly encourage you all as viewers to go over there and take a look at this for yourselves. But you see here, scheduled in 2025 for each respective teams, because of the names under that blue and white text, with those free agents coming off the books for each team, the Yankees are currently at $202.5 million. That's their starting payroll point if they don't sign any of these free agents right underneath their column here. And respectively, or in contrast, I should say, the New York Mets starting in 2025, if everything remains consistent, which obviously you need to sign players, you need to field the roster, it's not realistic, but it's how you allocate the rest of your payroll for the final number. They would start at, as of today, $141.75 million. And if you look at, obviously, the 309 figure right now for the Yankees in 2024 and that 317 figure for the Mets, if you do subtraction, just simple math, from 317 down to 141.75, that is a crazy amount of money, roughly what, 175 to 178, somewhere around there. Again, I'm no mathematician, but you do the math in terms of how much money is actually coming off the books. And the same thing can be said for the Yankees, just over $100 million coming off of their books. And that's because of a guy like Juan Soto hitting the open market. They also have Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, Alex Verdugo, etc. The list goes on and on and on, that are free agents for the New York Yankees. And on the other side of the coin, and this is something that I'll talk about on my podcast or my live stream tomorrow, Tuesday, October 29th at 5:45 p.m., the Mets also have a plethora of impending free agents that they have to make decisions on. And if you are planning to tune into that stream, I'm going to basically give you all what I think the Mets can and should do in terms of retaining certain players versus maybe not entertaining any contract extensions for the rest of the candidates that I think the Mets should just part ways with and try to replace via free agency or via trade this offseason. So that's what's going on the channel tomorrow. But again, Pete Alonso is going to headline the New York Mets offseason decision-making. Obviously, Sean Manaea, if, and let's be real with ourselves, when he declines that player option for that second year of the deal that he just got, he's going to be a very key player that David Stearns has already said in his press conference he wants to bring back. And the list goes on and on and on. Jose Iglesias, Jesse Winker, Luis Severino, who you don't see on this list here, is obviously JD Martinez and Harrison Bader. So again, a lot of decisions that the New York Mets are going to have to make. But something that's interesting here, when you take a look at each respective ownership of these teams, right? The Mets and the Yankees, is that one of these owners, and Hal Steinbrenner for the Yankees, 5 months ago, whether you remember it or not, basically told the media that maintaining a $300+ million payroll consistently simply isn't sustainable for them. And you can make the, I guess, assumption that they are probably going to be operating a little under that $300 million mark. Now, if they go and try to re-sign Juan Soto, obviously from $202 million all the way up to the difference of $300 million, he's going to take a big portion of that, roughly, let's just call it $98 million that are free for them. And obviously they can still field the roster and give Soto an extension. But the primary thing that I'm trying to relay to you all is that they have a little bit less wiggle room for allocating resources after a Soto extension than the Mets do. The Mets can take on Juan Soto. Realistically, right, if Steve Cohen is not setting any limitations for David Stearns and he is willing to operate $300 million plus again, they can sign Alonso and Soto and still have enough room to backfill the rotation via free agency and with the guys coming up that are the young guys in Blade Tidwell, Brandon Sproat, etc. However they decide that, and again, we'll be talking about that all offseason long. There's a lot of moving pieces for the Mets, as there are the Yankees, and I got you covered with that sort of discussion. But again, it's important to notice this right here on your screen before you take a look at, whether the Yankees or the Mets make the most sense. And for what I will say is that I still hold true, and this is going to probably piss off some Mets fans, in the fact that I still don't see a world, and my tune could change in a couple of months' time when it's time to make that decision for Juan Soto. I still don't see a world where he is on any other team, Juan Soto, I'm speaking of, obviously, other than the Yankees. I think that they traded him, obviously, to win a World Series. It's looking a little bleak for them, obviously being down 2-0 to the Dodgers in the World Series as the series heads back to New York for 3 games. But again, anything can happen. They can come back down from 2-0. But again, if they miss out on this opportunity and they end up losing this World Series, you would have to expect them to be aggressive in terms of bringing back the guy along with Aaron Judge that is maybe the best 1-2 tandem offensively that the league has to offer in terms of trying to get back to the World Series and eventually win it. Now, obviously, the Mets were right there in the thick of things as well, losing in 6 games in the NLCS to the Dodgers. And they're looking for outside help as well. The outfield is anything but sure for the New York Mets. Obviously, Harrison Bader is, free agent. Starling Marte is someone where the Mets, if they want to free up more room to be even more aggressive for a guy like Juan Soto, or on the flip side of the coin, on the pitching side, a Corbin Burns, who's going to be getting a pretty fat contract as well, in my opinion, in my estimation, you can explore trades for a guy like Starling Marte to clear that room, even if it's just a portion of his upcoming 2025 salary, as Steve Cohen has done in the past, primarily with the big name pitchers and Scherzer and Verlander. And the same thing can be said for Jeff McNeil. If you get some of his money off the books, you create even more wiggle room. So again, the Mets have shown that they have been aggressive in terms of eating some money, but also freeing up some space to put themselves in this situation where they have roughly $175+ million coming off the books to have a huge, massive offseason. Now, I know I'm doing the rambling. I'm doing a little bit of rambling here, and I apologize. I just wanted to give you all that sort of outlook in terms of what the background is behind these 2 teams. And obviously, it's not limited to these 2 teams. You can have a team like the Giants swoop in, who have been, aggressive in the past, especially making a huge offer to Aaron Judge, which he inevitably turned down. If the Phillies find a way to find a trade partner for Nick Castellanos and get his money off the books, they could be aggressive suitors. And the list doesn't really stop there. Although I don't think those teams are likely, they certainly still will be in competition with the Mets and the Yankees. But in this video, for all intents and purposes, I'm just talking about it and speaking about it in the manner of Mets versus Yankees for the services of Juan Soto in the next contract that he receives. So again, important to know the history. Obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. we're going to be talking Juan Soto, but it's important to realize how we got here and what the experts are also saying. If you all remember correctly, before he got traded from the Washington Nationals to the San Diego Padres, Juan Soto was given a contract extension offer from the Washington Nationals for 15 years, roughly $440 million. And that would equate to about $29.3 million per year AAV. Obviously, he was very smart in terms of declining that. He was very adamant that he was not going to accept that because he would have handcuffed himself in terms of definitely losing out on a lot of money. If he had accepted it at that point, it would be more of a safer play, just sort of mitigating any sort of drop in production or any sort of unfortunate injuries. But you know what? He was aggressive. He knew his worth, and more power to him because he's going to absolutely break the bank in a major way in comparison to even that $440 million that he was offered by the Washington Nationals. But what is Juan Soto projected at? What are the algorithms saying? What are the experts saying? And there's some differences here in terms of what the algorithms are saying from Spotrac, let's say, versus what the baseball media experts are saying in your Ken Rosenthal's, etc. So here is Spotrac's projection for Juan Soto. And there's going to be a lot of disagreements on this AAV mark and the overall value of the contract with the years given his age. Keep in mind, he's only 26 years old versus what actually happens when he puts pen to the paper. Now, Spotrac is projecting him at 14 years, $530 million, which, if my math is correct, would equate to somewhere between $37 to $39 million per year. In that ballpark. Again, I'm no mathematician. I apologize about that. I don't feel like getting my calculator out while I'm recording this, but just under $40 million, let's say, per Spotrac's projection. Now, you take a look at the Ohtani contract, and a lot of people are making the comparisons. Is Juan Soto going to match that total value upwards of $700 million? I would pump the brakes on that myself. But if there is somehow a bidding war between, let's say, the New York Mets and the Yankees or any other team out there, you could see that price drive up, which would make Scott Boras happy, which obviously makes Juan Soto happy. And they're going to break the bank for the most money possible, right? But that's Spotrac's projection. Ken Rosenthal recently came out with a statement. I believe he went on the Foul Territory podcast, if I'm not mistaken, talking about his AAV negotiations and the highest bidder up front, right, could start at $50 million per year, which is just roughly $11 to $12 million more than what Spotrac has him projected at. And then you start talking about $600+ million at that point. Now, obviously, the years are going to be interesting as well. I think that this is probably going to be Juan Soto's one time that he has, in his career to break the bank open, being 26 years old. There's not a situation really where teams are probably going to, I'm sure he'll get an offer maybe for like a 6 or 7 year deal, and you can kind of break his career into two and an opportunity to have another payday when he's like, 34, 35 years old. He's not going to want to do that. There's no chance, no realistic chance that that's possible. You risk a whole lot of money, and you just risk a lot if you were to go down that route. So you're going to be talking about a 26-year-old who's going to be getting offers for 12, 13, 14 years, possibly up until he's 40 years old. And that's going to be sort of maybe the one-time contract that he gets, and what he gets is what he gets. So this is going to be so interesting to play out. And again, as a Mets fan, I have to be as realistic as possible with myself, and I encourage a lot of other Mets fans to do so, even though I've seen a lot of Mets fans on social media, on YouTube, etc., already jumping the gun. This is going to be an exciting time. It's definitely going to be a race, but I have to be as realistic as possible with myself as a Mets fan and sort of temper my expectations in terms of him actually walking away from the New York Yankees organization. Obviously, the Mets are going to get the opportunity to blow him away with an offer. Given what Hal Steinbrenner said, with the payrolls kind of shrinking a little bit under $300 million, are the Yankees going, or are they willing to go as high as David Stearns and Steve Cohen? Time will tell. This is certainly an interesting topic, but I just wanted to give you all a little bit more background context in terms of what this offseason really means in terms of the Juan Soto sweepstakes. Again, hit those thumbs up buttons. I definitely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel for more Mets offseason content, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.